All right. Is everyone seeing the create bridges? All right. We really appreciate all of you joining us today, and we hope that this will provide you with the information that you need to decide if Create Bridges could be a good fit for your state, and also to let you know how the application process will go. We will have a time for Q&A at the end, but feel free to ask questions as we go along as well. And as Rachel said, we are recording this so that those who couldn't join us will still have the information. Here we go. Okay, so we'll go through some quick introductions. I am Grace Langford, and I'm the project manager for Create Bridges, and I work very closely with Rachel Welburn and the other state coaches. And so if each of our state coaching team members could go through, tell us your name, where you work, and then also others who are joining us can go through with their names and the state university that you work with. And Allison, since you've got the dogs, we'll let you go first.
Okay, great. I'm holding on to this so that the dog won't squeak. So I'm Allison Davis. I am a professor at the University of Kentucky, and I direct CETIC, which is our Community Economic Development Initiative of Kentucky. And so basically I'm the program leader for Community Economic Development, and we are a part of the Create Bridges team. So Kentucky is one of the states that's involved, and we have 2 regions that are participating in Appalachia, Kentucky. Is that good enough?
Great.
Rosie agrees. Okay, I'm going back on mute.
All right, Julianne.
I'm Julian Dunn. I'm with the University of Arkansas. Myself and Stacey McCullough are the state leads for the state of Arkansas, and like Allison, we are part of the pilot project with 2 regions on diametrically opposed ends of the state. So we'll get into that later.
Okay, and Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Seams. I'm with Oklahoma State University, based out of Stillwater on campus here in Oklahoma, and I am the program leader, manager of Create Bridges here in Oklahoma, part of 1/3 of that team that's been mentioned so far. We also have 2 regions in Oklahoma, and I think Grace will give us an opportunity in a little bit to share more about those regions. But yeah, that's me.
Great, thank you, Sarah. All right, and the rest of you who are joining, if you would like to introduce yourself via audio, you're welcome to. You can also drop your name, state university in the comment box if you would rather do that.
I'll go, that's fine. So I'm Krista Melick. I'm at the University of Nebraska, based in Lincoln. I'm a rural tourism and event management extension specialist. So a little different. I'm 50% extension and 50% faculty, so I do a lot of research. But this was forwarded to me, and people told me that I'd be interested in it, so here I am.
This is Richard Proffer. I'm with University of Missouri Extension. I am a regional community economic development specialist, working with our communities throughout the state, worked with CET and Rachel previously, and so got the email, and here I am.
Hey everybody, I'm Tyler August. I'm with Michigan State University Extension, and I'm on day 5 of my new job as a government and community vitality educator serving Southwest Michigan. But this was sent to me by our Institute Director for Community Food and Economics to kind of see if this is a good fit for us. We had participated in the set before, so here to find out more.
Hi, I'm Becky Bowen. I am a program manager with NC State Extension Community and Rural Development. And I got the email from Rachel in the Southern Rural Development Center. So we're just interested to see what's up.
I'm Bruce Schwartow, with a program leader for community economics at the University of Minnesota. And Richard Proffer filled me in on the presentation today.
My turn. This is Susan Odom. I'm an extension specialist in community development with the University of Illinois Extension. I am located in the southernmost part of the state, fairly close to Richard, but we've been involved with a couple of the set projects, and I was excited to learn more about this new initiative. It seems to mesh well with my work and some of the work that we've done with SET, and also, you know, my passion for local. So I'm very interested to learn more about this.
Okay, did we get everybody?
I think I see that Anne put hers in the chat box.
Great, okay. All right. Rachel, I can't see the chat box with the screen share. Would you mind, just so everyone else knows, reading out what Anne has there?
So welcome Anne. Anne is South Dakota State University Extension Community Vitality Field Specialist. Creative placemaking is her focus. She's new to Extension, and any creative placemaking connections or suggestions are appreciated.
All right. Well, it's great to have you all with us today, and hopefully this webinar will be of help to you. All right, little bit of background on Create Bridges. The name is an acronym for Celebrating Retail, Accommodations, Tourism, and Entertainment by Building Rural Innovations and Developing Growth Economies. That is a mouthful, so we have shortened it to Create Bridges. And initially, this was formed to help rural southern communities that had previously relied on sectors that are often disappearing in rural areas, such as mining and farming. And we wanted to explore economic opportunities within other sectors, specifically retail accommodations, tourism, and entertainment, which often make up a significant percentage of the remaining jobs in rural areas. And for this webinar, we are going to refer to retail accommodations, tourism, and entertainment as create sectors, and refer to businesses in those sectors as create businesses. And Create Bridges formed as a partnership between our cooperative extension partners in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kentucky, and the Southern Rural Development Center, along with Walmart as our funder. And we wanted to strengthen create businesses in these states, and we're working in 6 pilot regions. Several of you mentioned SET, or Stronger Economies Together. We really used that program as a starting point for developing Create Bridges. So if you're familiar with that, you kind of know some of the basic processes that we're going through here. So the purpose of Create Bridges, we really wanted to raise awareness of the role that they play, that create businesses play in the local workforce and economy, We wanted to determine challenges, barriers, and opportunities relating to those businesses, and also develop and implement strategies that can strengthen create business sectors within a multi-county region. And these are the states that we are currently working in. You've heard from Sarah in Oklahoma. They have the Sandstone Hills and Crossing Borders regions in the Northeast. And then Arkansas has the Three Seas region in the Southwest, the Ozark Foothills region in North Central part of the state. And then Kentucky has two regions in the eastern part of the state, Big Sandy and EKCEP Focus region. And so Allison, Sarah, Julian, and their colleagues in this project are really the folks who are partnering with regional steering committees within these regions. They're kind of the boots on the ground aspect of the program. And then Rachel and I, as the Southern Rural Development Center, help facilitate making sure the states and regions have appropriate resources and provide a connection to our funder as well. So we have several steps to the program, and the coaching teams will assist and guide regions through these steps. It is, however, important for regions to be willing to take ownership of the process. Also, you'll see some of these responsibilities kind of fall in chronological order, whereas others will overlap or need to be completed simultaneously. So the first step is to form a regional steering committee, and this is usually begun in the application process as regions apply for the program, and then finalized through the orientation process. After that, the regional steering committee members will complete an asset map of the region, really focusing on what create businesses are in those regions and what workforce development training programs exist. From there, the region will host a Create Bridges forum, which is in a civic forum style, but we've been a little bit more focused on who is invited to those meetings. And this really provides a great opportunity for the asset map to be expanded, any holes to be filled in as more voices are at the table. It also provides an opportunity for community buy-in and kind of some initial brainstorming for potential barriers and opportunities that exist within the region. Oops, sorry, that one's out of order. The business retention and expansion is the next step of the process, and that follows along simultaneously with engaging employees within the region, as well as really digging into the workforce development opportunities that are there and considering how those opportunities can be streamlined so that they better serve the community. And then after that, there is what we call a Create Academy. This is really a data-focused session and provides just a lot of the context and hard numbers that we need before going into the strategy development season and implementation of Create Bridges. So that's how we have the process laid out as we're going into phase 2, which will start this year in 2020. And for our initial pilot regions, the ones that are currently in year 3 of the program. We are over here, we're finishing up business retention and expansion surveys. We have distributed employee perspective surveys and we're finishing those. We're also finalizing the workforce development opportunities catalog, and our regions are preparing to have their strategy development meetings. You can see from this slide that the steps are organized slightly differently than they were in the previous one. So we had completed the Create Academy first and then moved into business retention and expansion, employee engagement, and workforce development opportunities. We found that the business retention and expansion process is just such a good opportunity to create buy-in from business owners in the region and pique their interest. And so we moved that earlier in the process so that those business owners can be partners in this for more of the process. And as we move through Create Bridges, the role of state coaching teams is really going to be leading, first of all, the regional orientation and training, also coaching the regional steering committees throughout the process, beginning to end. Coaches will be expected to have regular site visits so they stay engaged with their regions, and also to contribute to the National Create Bridges team calls and meetings. We have regular calls scheduled on a monthly basis that are done via Zoom, and then we also try to schedule face-to-face meetings once or twice a year, depending on what the needs are. And then sometimes we also have a supplementary online meetings as well. It'll also be coaching teams' responsibility to connect regions with the resources that they need to complete the program and to complete evaluation materials along the way. There will be several pieces as you go through each step of the process to complete. And then finally, it's the state coaching team's responsibility to make sure that the funder is appropriately acknowledged throughout the program, and we will provide resources for that to kind of guide you through that process. So that's the role of state coaching teams. And then our regional steering committees, they'll have specific tasks that follow along with each step of the process, but there are also just some overarching rules and expectations that we have of them. And one of those is to include diverse representation. So we want all of the Create sectors to be present in these discussions. So a diverse representation of the business sectors within the region is important, also including economic development, personnel, education, government, any nonprofits that are relevant to what Create Bridges does is important. And also we want to make sure that our regional steering committees reflect the demographics of the communities that this program is serving. And so that's important to establish at the beginning and then ensure throughout the process. It's also important for regional steering committees to establish clear roles for subcommittees, as this really helps just ensure that progress is made in a timely manner. And in our current states and regions, the subcommittees have formed just kind of based on the needs of those regions, but subcommittees that we recommend would include a subcommittee for the business retention and expansion process, for engaging with employees, and for streamlining those workforce opportunities. We also expect the regional steering committees to coordinate with state coaches and maintain clear communication with our state coaches, as well as to be the forerunners in engaging with key stakeholders in the community. And then finally, the regional steering committee will need to plan and implement a regional communication strategy, and one for communicating with throughout their region, but also maintaining those communication pathways within their team. Right, and now I will turn it over to Rachel Wilburn.
Thanks, Grace. We'll talk a little bit about some of the logistics from here to the end, and then we'll stop and see what questions you have. So this does give a little bit of the time frame. We are currently already into the grant cycle with Walmart, but we are hoping that our new pilots will get identified and ready to go by March 2020, at least the states. And then you'll need another month or two to get your regions identified and active. So we're saying possibly by June, you would have them go in, and then you would notice that these go through November 2022. So this is a multi-year project. And if you look over on the right there, you see that each of the new states that we identify will get $300,000. And from that, about a third of the budget needs to be supporting strategies that that region identifies. So this could be workforce, it could be some other things that come out, but it needs to be something very directly that comes from the entire process. The rest of it would be for salary, time, travel, whatever else is needed to support this work through the duration of the grant. There is an indirect cap of 10% of the direct cost, and that is Walmart's cap. The subawards will come to the center, but all of you that have done SET, you kind of know how that works, and it will be a very similar process there. All right, so now let's look at the state application. It is, again, if those of you that did SET, it'll look a lot alike. We are looking at who's going to be the primary contact person, who are your coaching team members, what are their skills. Specifically, a couple of things that we're looking for there is someone that can handle the data. So we're asking you to identify that person that can talk through the data. And also we are wanting to see a previous SET coach on your team. The reason for that is we have a very short timeline in getting everybody up and going. And those that have done SET will probably find it much more easy to make that transition. So we do want a SET coach on the team, but you can have other people on the coaching team that were not part of SET, that is fine. We have a section in the application for you to tell us how you will be recruiting your regions, and then your experience with working with regions. So what have you learned from that? What successes have you had? What challenges have you experienced? Just to talk a little bit about that. And you can see that the due date for these is February 21st, 2020, and those are going to go to Grace. All that information is on the application itself. So we'll look forward to having those applications from you. This is it's a fairly short form. It's not very long at all, so it shouldn't take you a lot of time to do this. We'll also just mention that different from SET, this is not a direct partnership with USDA Rural Development. So certainly if you've developed a great relationship with your RD partners and they are interested in being on your coaching team, you can certainly include someone that's not part of the land grant system as part of your coaching team. But that does take a layer of the application process out to not have to get the RD sign on that. Okay. And then we will talk a bit about how we're going to select these. You can see over on the right-hand side that we are looking for 2 states from the South and 1 state outside the South for a total of 3 new states. And then on the left side, this has the scoring rubric that we'll be using to select that. And so just as you might expect, it kind of goes through those pieces that we just discussed, looking at the capacity of the coaching staff, their experience, the recruitment plan, and your experience working with regions. And all of that is also in the application itself. And then we'll look lastly at the onboarding process, our tentative timeline. And we're saying tentative because once we identify the 3 states that we'll be working with, we will also work with them to flesh this detail out a little more. But our rough idea is that by early March, we want to get our states selected. We're going to turn around as quickly as possible once we get the applications in. And then somewhere around early to mid-March, we will do another webinar for those states and talk a little bit more about what the process is for identifying your regions so that you can go ahead and get started with that part. We'll go a little more into depth in the steps that Grace outlined earlier, so you've got a little more information about what each of those entails so that you can communicate that as you're working with regions. And then somewhere late spring, early summer, we would plan a face-to-face training for the state leads. So it would be not a full week, but 2 or 3 days that we would get together and walk through all the pieces together. And that's kind of what we have in mind there. So I'm going to stop and see what questions you have. You can use chat, but also this is a small group. I welcome you to just open your mic and what questions you have. Go ahead, Becky.
So going back to the 1/3 of the $300,000 award must go to strategy support. Can you explain a little bit more what you mean by that? I mean, with so let's just say it's just 1/3, $100,000 over a 2-year period would go to the region to help them develop their strategies. Is that what you're saying?
It wouldn't be to develop the strategy, it would be to implement.
Implement, yeah.
So for the most part, looking at the pilots that are going right now, they have used between little and none of that money yet. But in this last year, this is their 3rd year, that's when they're going to really be looking at, okay, what now do we do to help support those regions? They've already gone through all their planning process. They have their list of things that they really feel like they need to accomplish. So how can they use those funds then to move forward? So that's what we mean. It's not to get them through planning, something done once they've gone through the planning process.
So just to follow up on that, so this is a generous amount of more funding than we're experienced with getting from USDA for the SET project. So I'm assuming that some of the remaining funds could be used to hire additional people for the state coaching team. Is that?
You could, if you want someone to be working, yes.
Okay.
That's fine. I guess 2 of the 3 pilot states hired someone this work. And keep in mind that is over a roughly 3-year period, a little short of 3 years, but that's a longer funding period also.
With the current ones, what is the size of that coaching team? How many individuals are on the ones that are already existing?
So why don't the 3 of you answer that, and let's start with Julian, then go to Sarah, then Allison to talk a little bit about who's on your team.
So in Arkansas, it is Dr. Stacey McCullough and myself. Although the bulk of the in the field work is done by me, and then the national teamwork is done with Stacey and I. But our model is very similar to Oklahoma's, but yeah, it's 2 of us, and it has been very helpful to have me mostly dedicated.
Hi, so here in Oklahoma, our state leads had been Dr. David Scheidler and I. He recently left to take a new opportunity, but we have a pretty robust team here with some career tech partnerships. Here in Oklahoma, we have tribal governments that we've partnered with, as well as workforce boards and chambers of commerce in the regions. Those are really our major collaborators in the region. And then of course we work with the other 2 states and SRDC who are part of this pilot.
So in Kentucky, it is, there's probably, well, there were 4 of us working on it. One of my staff just recently left. But we have myself, Dan Call, who's an associate professor, Rosie, and we have someone who specializes, our BRE extension specialist helps, and then we had a program coordinator. Also on our team, we have covers a huge geographic area, but it's our Workforce Investment Board that covers both of our regions, and our Kentucky Retail Federation.
I should also mention, along the lines of Sarah and Alex saying, we, unlike the other 2 states, we also created a state steering committee board that was made up of statewide agencies that work in these. So kind of like what Alex was talking about with her workforce group. We brought together like our Economic Development Commission, our Small Business and Technical Development Center, our work, like our WOA, we have like a small group and we get together, and they've been really helpful as well, out for a statewide perspective.
Other questions?
Okay, Rachel, this is Susan. Okay, I'm hearing, I guess I'm a little confused. The coaching team, is that specifically within the unit of extension or the state university system, or other collaborators considered part of the team as well?
I think that will be up to each state to determine how they want to put that team together. I think probably you're going to have a base team that's going to come from extension, but
okay.
And if you want to include other collaborators in some way, you know, the different models that the states have used have been, you know, like Julian just described, the state steering committee, the, you know, Allison looking at the different partners that they've used. I think part of that will be for you to put together what you feel like is going to meet the needs.
Okay, but the university or extension, whichever the case may be, that would be the applicant?
The extension will be the applicant.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
You had briefly mentioned the data skills for talking about the different data points. What level are we talking there? Is it the idea that they would be contributing to analysis and things like that, or just interpreting sort of regional economic and demographic data?
Allison, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So Kentucky's been the one that's housed the data and has the national data set. And it is, we have provided sort of this overview of kind of the retail sector. And so there'll certainly be some kind of training that we can do. It's not quite, since I did both the SET one and the Retail Academy, this one is not nearly as complex as some of the stuff that we did with SET. And so it's more about just sort of understanding your data, what does it mean, and starting that story. I don't think it's nearly as intense as what we did with SET. And then, but you don't have to, you're not responsible for finding those data. We will provide it for you once your region's selected.
Other questions? Richard?
Yes. So Allison, in comparison to the set, are we talking anything like location quotients, anything like that for this, or is it more leakages, things like that?
More kind of a, if you're familiar with the terminology, kind of a trade area capture and leakages stuff. But yeah, that's about it. There's no location quotients. It's really just looking, for the most part, at some of this employment, all of the retail sectors in the region, and then we do some kind of push-pull kind of analysis.
Okay.
And Sarah did say that she could share Oklahoma's data sheet so that y'all kind of have a better idea of what we're looking at.
Yeah, I actually had mine pulled up, so let me know. Can you see my screen now? How about now?
There it is. It's coming.
All right. So you'll see here the regional economic profile. This is for Sandstone Hills. This is our 3-county region in north central Oklahoma. So we have some population information here, what the top 5 industries are. So you'll see the impact that retail trade has in these sectors. I'm just going to kind of quickly scroll through this. It's just a 1-page front and back. We share the commuting patterns for the region, and then the sales tax breakdown, GDP, and pull factors, as Allison just mentioned. So you'll see here that for this region, the CREATE Industries sales tax revenues is over half of the annual sales tax for the state. So again, just showing how important these sectors are to these regions. And that's really about it. So if there's anything anyone else wants to add.
And we can put one of these examples up for you to look at. So when you're doing the application, if you want to share that with your team and just give them a sense of what we're doing, we're glad to do that.
I was going to say, and you know, again, just like with SET, you know, you can augment with local data. So like in Kentucky, we have access to Esri Business Analyst. And so we use some of that information because you can, you know, you can look at like consumer kind of tapestry segmentation, and you can look more specific at the types of spending patterns. So you certainly can add to this, but this was something that we felt, and even the tax information can be a little bit wonky because every state, Oklahoma is I think, surprisingly, just absolutely had the best tax data, and Kentucky had the worst. But this is certainly that kind of information is a really compelling piece to elected officials as they're thinking about why this is important, since it's such an important contributor to the tax base. But yeah, there's all kinds of other things that are out there, but we thought this was sort of just like a 2-pager that would sort of set the stage.
This is Susan. I guess a question on selecting your region, and I noticed that Walmart is a you know, a funder of this project. So when you're looking at identifying a region, are we looking at specifically counties that, you know, Walmart is kind of the in the regional shopping destination for a group of counties, or what are you looking at there? So as a key, you know,
not necessarily
fit for the region.
Right. So not necessarily. We are still looking at rural counties and at least 3 contiguous counties, similar to how we did with SET. So,
okay.
You know, in that area, you may or may not have a Walmart. That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I would also add, in fact, Walmart, you know, I think Walmart has been a wonderful funding partner for this, but we've had a harder time at the local level getting Walmart to participate. And so they have been sort of a non-player. Even I know for us, we have a Walmart in both of our regions, at least one, and they just haven't been a non-player. And there's been no pressure whatsoever from Walmart to stipulate some kind of relationship.
Okay, that helps a lot, because in looking at the region, I mean, they're, you know, scattered across the landscape here in Southern Illinois, but not prevalent, as Rachel said, in a lot of our rural counties. So, and their leakage and the pull-push factor is clearly, you know, an issue that we look at and related to where the Walmarts are, you know, located in our region.
I think one thing, and I know we wanted to talk to you a little bit about our experience so far, is I think in all 3 of our states, although I could be wrong, we've had an easier time, I don't think this is terribly surprising, working with the more locally owned and run enterprises and have had a much harder time working where the masses. And so it's been a bit frustrating, because if you're thinking about creating workforce development programs or thinking about career pipelines, you kind of really want to get to some density, and that density occurs, with the Walmarts or the dollar stores. But they tend to have a lot of their own internal training programs. And they have such a kind of hierarchy of who they're reporting to, that they tend to not be as interested. And so another reason why I think this project has been nice is because it's not just focused on retail. One thing that we did stipulate to Walmart was that for us to work in a rural place, just working with retail in isolation is just silly. And it's all these kind of service sectors that have shared skills that are, relatively low wage as entry. So that's why most of their other workforce programs that they fund are strictly for retail. And here we have tourism and entertainment. And so it allows us to get enough mass of folks to participate, but we're not getting, at least, and Julian and Sarah, you can correct me if you guys have had similar different experiences, but we've just had the dickens of a time getting into the big places.
I would agree with that. Here in Oklahoma, we're in a more unique position that we do have so many tribal entities in both of our regions. And so they have been great partners to provide that density, as Allison said, because they oftentimes have their own initiatives that are, focusing on tourism development and retail, entertainment. So really plugging into that has allowed us to broadcast our message to a denser group.
I would also agree. I think the only opportunity that we have had to engage some of these like big boxes like Taco Bell or Walmart is if they are members of the local Rotary, because then then it's like a community pressure, rather than like in other towns where they're not on the Rotary, they won't even return our calls or walk away when we're talking to them, or send us to their corporate, and that's a place where you just disappear. But getting their engagement through the Rotary has been very helpful.
Yeah, working through civic organizations, local civic organizations, and one way we've kind of sold this to our smaller businesses is just reminding them that this provides a smaller business that doesn't have any kind of formal upskilling or orientation for their employees to kind of combine forces and combine resources in an area to then be able to provide that alongside other small businesses.
So I have a different question, and that is, are we going to be selecting 2 regions? How many regions are we supposed to be working with?
This will be for 1 region per state.
Okay.
Trust us when we tell you you're lucky. 2 is a beast.
Which is why you're only going to do 1.
You are benefiting from our learning.
I mean, as you can tell, this is, although it's modeled after SET, it is also much more labor intensive. By the time you do the BRE and the employee survey, employee engagement, it takes a lot more hand holding than SET did. So 1 region is plenty.
Okay.
This is Richard from Missouri. I have a question in regards to the region. We actually have got workforce development committees in different regions that are part of Extension. Their Extension started them, and then they're citizen driven. So, and they are trying to develop some things similar, but also some other different things. Could Extension be the applicant and then work with those already workforce development task force that we've created? Would that am I thinking the right thing here, or am I totally way off base? If we worked with them, if we got the grant to go to do this opportunity.
So I'll answer because I do that. You know, in Kentucky, I think one thing that we should recognize, at least in Kentucky and maybe other places, that we're typically not going to be workforce development entities. That's not what we're here for. And so but the workforce agencies aren't particularly good about getting into businesses and getting and understanding this particular sector. And so we have been working hand in hand with our workforce development board, and in fact have allocated some funding to them to help us both with kind of the facilitation of the project as well as the implementation of training. And so I think that's there are certain places where extension can play a role, and that's, you know, some of it could be soft skill development or some of the types of trainings that we're really good at. Others that are maybe a bit more skilled trainings. Why reinvent the wheel when you've got a great partner who has similar missions?
I will just add one caveat to that, and that is that this is a pilot, and we are piloting a process to learn together from it. So we would still want the regions to buy into the process and be willing to walk through the steps with us. Other questions?
Yeah, with the regions, is the expectation that all the counties will be rural, or could it be a mix?
I think actually the application, we have the link of what rural means, because rural means different things for different people. So we chose one, and it's in the application, or it used to be, and I think it should be. Yeah, it's still there, so that you don't have to like guess which rural definition you're using.
And it does say 51% of the region should be rural in nature. So hopefully that gives you a better idea.
So just for example, here in Oklahoma, the 3 counties that I just shared the economic profile for, initially they wanted to include Payne County, which is where Stillwater is located. And because Stillwater and the university skews this county urban, they couldn't include Payne County. So they just went with the 3-county region.
What I will say though is, as we've been implementing, some of the surrounding counties have come to our things and have benefited from either learning from us, or, I mean, I'm not going to turn down someone asking a bunch of questions after an event. So if there is a neighboring county that, I mean, one of my neighboring counties is very not, it would have done what Sarah talked about, but they have representatives almost every meeting we have. And they're welcome, like, because it's a regional, like, we've just arbitrarily said 3 counties, so 3 to 5 counties. So everyone's welcome to learn from us. And everyone likes to see people in the community, so to share, it helps them too.
And I do notice that we're coming towards the end of our time. So real quick before we wrap things up, if I could just have Sarah, Julian, and Allison go through and share kind of why the CREATE sectors are important to the regions you selected. Julian, we'll start with you and then go to Sarah and Allison.
My 2 regions are very, very different from each other. I mean, they're literally across the state from each other, and they have very different problems. But the process that we've done so far has, you know, on a larger level, it helps them understand that what they're going through is not unique to them. They've been told a story about this community. I had a lot of people say, like, I didn't realize that this was a common story. And through the BRE process specifically, I've had a lot of businesses follow up our interview with, like, going to chamber meetings and going to city council. At least one of them is running for office now. I mean, I think they're feeling a little bit more engaged, and that's their opinions are being asked for. And I mean, I can't quantify that, but the story seems to be changing a little bit in these communities, and I want to say it's us, but it could be other things that have started around us. But even just the asset maps that we did during the forums, I mean, people walked away from that like, I didn't realize we had so much stuff. And you know, after BRNEs, I didn't know we had so many jobs here. And it's like, well, we did. So I feel like we're part of a larger movement for communities that have been frequently told that they are dying, their populations are declining, their sales tax is going down. Now the census is coming, and they're told there will be more people, and they're just going to die. And I think we're in an aspirational way, kind of fighting that.
So I would certainly echo what Julianne said, just in terms of these regions, as we work through this process, have made a lot of self-discoveries, and they've collaborated in a lot of ways that they hadn't previously collaborated, sometimes realizing that they're duplicating each other's efforts, and that it would be more effective to kind of combine some of these efforts. Specifically here in Oklahoma, our regions are pretty tourism heavy, so we do have quite a bit of retail. You may have heard of a little show run by a woman named Ree Drummond over in Pawhuska. So we definitely do have retail, but we also have the famous Route 66 that runs through one of our regions, as well as the Flint Hills and Tallgrass Prairie. And then in another region, we have Cherokee Nation, which is really at the heart of that region. And they really rely heavily on the cultural diversity of the area and a lot of their natural resources with lakes and rivers. So just kind of helping to communicate to the region that so much of their population growth and sales tax revenue really relies on these sectors, and how important it is to support them and provide resources that historically they haven't been provided with. So it's been really beneficial here in Oklahoma, just to kind of get people collaborating. I know for the chambers, especially in some of the really small towns, it's provided a way for the chambers really to reach out to businesses in a way that's meaningful. Through the BRNE and employee engagement, it's really helped them engage better with their local businesses.
So in Kentucky, we have the two regions where they're located are in Appalachia, and they have certainly faced a significant decline in industry. And so this is the second largest industry for most of these places, even of healthcare, so it's education and retail. And before we even started the conversation with Walmart, we were getting a lot of folks who were more smaller places that were saying we can't promote anyone because people don't stay around long enough. And one of my good friends who runs a tremendous restaurant in Southeast Kentucky that really has helped the entire region come alive was basically saying that she can't get a cook to stay long enough to be sort of that so that she can take some time off. And when she can't take time off, it begins to wear on you, and you question your interest in owning such an enterprise. And so when we went and talked to Walmart about it, they certainly said very similar things, that they can't find store managers that do actually pay good wages, right? So we understand, and it is a hard sell, to be honest, to talk about this, because it is low wage. But there is a career pathway for a lot of these folks. And so it's our hope that we can sort of highlight that, particularly when there's such a tremendous need. Even, Walmart's one example, but even those like small mom and pops that just can't keep their doors open past 5 p.m. Because they've got kids that they want to take care of, and that's totally understandable. But this is one of the things about BRE is, they want to be able to keep their doors open later, because that's when people actually are out and about. And so it's just a critical piece of these small rural places to think about how they can have folks within the service industry that they can trust, and that they can provide good wages and benefits to. And that's just not where we are right now. So it's been, it was an easier sell for us. I think we were all a little bit surprised, an easier sell for us to our locally elected like officials and economic development professionals. Like we were hoping to have this like retail academy up front to say, wait, look, this is really big. And they were like, yeah, we know, you know. And so the harder sell has been with the businesses, right? To say, wait, this is important. You know, you don't understand necessarily the cost of when, you know, when folks leave and you have to do retraining, and the cost of the community. So it's been a little bit of a harder sell to the businesses than I think I had thought, but a much easier sell to the stakeholders within the community, and a tremendous benefit for the Chamber of Commerce, because now they're providing a, you know, a service to their membership and potentially new members.
I would say too, here in Oklahoma, similarly, you know, it was a pretty easy sale to a lot of the elected officials and civic leaders, and a little bit harder to the businesses. But as we've gone through this process, we've uncovered or discovered some businesses, very small businesses, who are doing very innovative things to attract and retain employees. And they're not trade secrets. They say, we're happy to share this with everybody because, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so we've been able to kind of organize some really interesting ways that other small businesses in that region may be able to attract and retain employees, and provide benefits that maybe don't look exactly like what we might think of as traditional benefits, but they're benefits that are meaningful enough to people working in these sectors that they're willing to stay pretty long term at jobs that typically have high turnover. So.
Thank y'all so much for sharing some of those real life perspectives and impacts that y'all have had in your regions. I know that we are a little past 12, the hour, so I'm going to share with y'all some links to a little bit more information. So each of our states has a space on their website where you can see more of what they're doing, and then SRDC has a Create Bridges webpage as well. And then also just a reminder of my contact information. If y'all have more questions, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. And then the state applications are due February 21st by 12 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're not one of those far western states, you have a little bit extra time to get those in. And then we will have the applications as well as recording of the webinar and a copy of the slides over on our website. You can find it at this link, and we'll make sure to send this out to y'all as well so that you can have access to that after the webinar is over. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. Rachel, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just want to add my thanks also. We appreciate your interest and appreciate the great conversation today. If you have questions, feel free to let us know. We'll do our best to answer those. And we're just very glad to see the interest, and it's good to see some familiar faces and meet a few new people. So we'll look forward to chatting some more. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Nice to meet everyone.